It was a big follow-up from WWE Clash of Champions back at the Thunderdome. A huge return from Canada. That was glorious? Yes. Randy Orton strikes again. He is still in the scene with WWE. Breaking news about COVID-19's continuing effects on the wrestling business and obviously the world, and then the wrestling business. It's WrestleZone! But two co-hosts. We're going to all 3 points of the country right now. Central Pennsylvania, always calm, cool, and collective. Let's see if he gives it a 7.5, dog. We're reviewing tonight Monday Night Raw with John Clark. He's a cool hand Luke in the show. He comes in, doesn't have to be all flustered. He doesn't have to yell like me and Robert Fields do. No, he comes in, he's slick. All right, he's real slick. He's got it together. All right, we'll find out if he's the tribal chief of WrestleZone.
That's just not true.
And then down in Florida, in a state that has recently said, why don't we just open up everything again with COVID-19? Doesn't really matter. The always undefeated, always outlandish. There we go. I'm going to give you a Zicky Dice billing now. Robert DeFelis joining us on this Raw post show after a pretty active and well-received WWE Clash of the Champions pay-per-view. I know we'll get into Raw. You guys can check out our post show. I did it with Keith Pazel, but I really loved Clash of the Champions. I thought it was a great show. What do you think WWE did to follow that up tonight, Robert?
I think WWE did the best they could. They are working with a skeleton crew even more than usual.
Mm-hmm.
I like some elements. I was very confused by the closing element. Not confused per se, but like, Are we entering the movie genre here? What's happening? But I don't know, man. I think Raw was an okay follow-up, but the money, the go-away money from Clash of Champions was on the SmackDown side of things. So Raw did the best they could.
John Clark, your take.
Yeah, I agree. I think with what they had to work with tonight, they definitely made some positive things. I really enjoyed some parts of the show. And like Robert said, there was some parts of it that just simply didn't make any sense. But I feel like they had to kind of fill time in wherever they could tonight. So some things naturally weren't going to make sense. And then naturally, with the exclusion of Raw Underground, that was more time they had to fill also.
People already saying, Michael texting in saying, Robert, are you wearing night vision goggles? Did you wear some of Randy Orton's night vision goggles that he was wearing tonight?
So are we just gonna go right there because that was
we always work our way down from the main event. We'll talk about the main event tonight. We got an open challenge match. I think that's pretty exciting, but we'll talk about that. But the show closed with this little tiny segment they snuck in just with 90 seconds left on the show. We cut to a masked, hooded janitor who has a full body outfit on, who reveals himself to be Randy Orton, who now wants to take out the legends who attacked him last night at Monday Night Raw, or last night at the Clash of Champions pay-per-view during the ambulance match, the Slambulance match. And he reveals himself. He puts on night vision goggles, turns out the light where Ric Flair, Big Show, and Christian and HBK are all playing poker throughout the night, celebrating that they helped Drew McIntyre retain the championship from the night prior. Turns out the lights, bang, 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 bang. Everything is ruckus. Lights back on. Randy Orton has taken out everybody with a chair. It was kind of cartoony, but also effective in the sense that you can't do too much physicality with Christian and Ric Flair with their well-known health status and stuff like that. I didn't hate it. It wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't the normal, brutal Randy Orton just because we didn't get to see it. John, what did you think of this?
I loved it. I thought, and a little bit of backstory. At the beginning of Raw tonight, when this first started going down, I said, please, we need to get a Hell in a Cell match between these two. I have been petitioning for quite some time for Drew to finally drop the belt. I feel like we're three pay-per-views too late for that. But I thought that this ending segment was the perfect way to get a third match with Orton and McIntyre, and I thought it was well done.
Robert?
Listen, WWE is in the middle of an identity crisis. They're trying to go back to the 80s with some things. This was reminiscent of that to me. I thought it worked, but the vision of Randy Orton putting on the night vision goggles and then shutting off the lights just seemed very hokey. And if we're going to go back to hokey, I said this when it came to the Retribution names, we need a Hulk Hogan-like babyface to thrive in the cartoony. And we don't have that right now.
You don't think Drew McIntyre is a Hulk Hogan-y babyface?
Absolutely not. Drew McIntyre is somewhere a cross between Big Daddy Cool Diesel and Bret the Hitman Hart.
He's more of a new generation guy.
He definitely is. Yeah. You know, and I think we're going to need a new Superman pretty soon.
Daniel Soto disagrees. He texted in the show saying it was brilliant, funny. I loved it. Okay, so he enjoyed it. See what other fans are thinking here. We'll talk about all the other dramatic angles. Timmy Landis saying, what did we think of Mysterio, daughter, and Murphy? Good turning point tonight. They did a lot of soap opera drama with that, and it caused some drama on the internet involving a completely unrelated WWE superstar who is very popular, and that internet drama we will also touch upon tonight. Also on tonight's show, why was there no Raw Underground? We have some developing news about that. The COVID situation with WWE and AEW is developing. We will touch on that. So don't worry. We'll touch on that all within tonight's show, covering tonight's Monday Night Raw. Continue to give us your 1 out of 10 ratings for Monday Night Raw. Bob Coaster giving it a 5. Some other people gave it a 7. But we continue to run down the card here. John Kirby gives Raw a 7. But Raw Underground was not a part of it. Why was there no Raw Underground, Robert? Your friends over at Fightful have a little bit of news on this.
Yeah, they have. Courtesy of Sean Ross Sapp and specifically Fightful Select. Fightful had learned that as of the start of the show, no Raw Underground segments were filmed, and they're usually filmed in advance. And the company was short on names due to exposure and quarantine in connection with the COVID outbreak. So Raw Underground was deemed unnecessary for the week.
That seems completely reasonable, right?
The thing that scares me, and I don't want to go off into the weeds too much.
Sure.
But as a Floridian, knowing the new regulations or lack thereof, I don't like that wrestling across the board is seeing its biggest spike in exposure and cases and people coming forward saying, I have COVID or have been in contact with somebody who has.
And it's going to increase the likelihood of cases, I think, within specifically the camps of WWE and AEW, if you just have more cases in the area around them. I mean, these are people they're going to have to, I assume they want people to train at the Performance Center. I assume they want them to be living relatively close to the bubble lifestyle, right? But you have people that want to go to the store or want to go to church, or, and it's different in the regions. I know it's probably different for you in Pennsylvania, the levels of severity there. Different for me here in Chicago. I'm going up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm waiting for some wrestling-related news about a wrestling event that I may be involved with. So you have to take those risks with as much mitigation as possible. And wrestling itself is a risk anyway. You can get injured doing a lot of different things in wrestling. But obviously with WWE, I'll say this. If anyone's yelling at them or yelling at AEW to do this, at this point, I think they're doing everything they can. I mean, they're doing as much testing. Maybe if you increase the testing, some people said that, maybe the frequency of testing should be increased. But it is a fluid situation, and you hope everyone's okay. We learned earlier today that all of Retribution, you will not see them for a few weeks, though they were featured tonight in a vignette. They were featured in some type of technical glitching as well, but we didn't see them. WWE's done that already when they could have had them in the ring.
So now we know that T-Bar is not the code name for the vaccine for coronavirus. So that's at least one mystery off the table.
Yeah. But they're in quarantine. It's worth noting that some of the WWE talent that you saw get pulled off the Clash of the Champions pay-per-view, Nikki Cross, Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, others. The reason that that doesn't clarify that they have COVID. I don't want anyone rushing that conclusion.
I want to just stomp this out. Herman Takar asking if Shayna's pregnant. No.
No,
So
that
that's
is not
solid.
true.
That's a big old no.
The big old no.
Yeah,
it just
the
You're a
weirdness
little
out
old
of
for that.
yeah.
She could be near that window, yeah. But I mean, who are we to say that, right? I think it's worth saying because a lot of the people are being quarantined out of an abundance of caution. So I don't think that's bad. I think that's considerate and an active response to the situation.
Here's the concerning thing for me. They announced that Nikki and Nia and Shayna were like not medically cleared, and Nia and Shayna just straight up last night go, "That's a lie." Why? Why are you doing that, yo? Like, obviously you're pulling out the show for a reason, and you want to you want to draw attention to this. So does that? To me, it's like, is there dissension?
I don't think they want to look weak. I think that's the thing. They don't want everybody to feel like they're hurt and like they can't defend their titles. But it was a stupid move to say that unless they're going to somehow build the story in a different direction. But at this point, it's
how
like
do you build the story if you have people just being gapped so much here? You know what I mean? I mean, it just makes it challenging to just continue to tell these stories week to week.
I mean, it felt to me tonight on Raw that they are actually making a direction with the women's tag division now that we actually have 4 women's tag teams now on Raw as of tonight, where recently we had pretty much none. So at least they're doing something about it.
They definitely established a new team tonight, and I think just establishing a new team is important in developing and fleshing that out. Other active big parts of Monday Night Raw, I think maybe the big talking point in terms of in-ring tonight was the huge return of the glorious Robert Roode, who made his way back into the main event picture. He was the one who accepted Drew McIntyre's open challenge for the title. A very competitive match. I was very surprised how much offense they gave him and nearly a handful of near falls here. But you got to give it to Drew, a valiant fighting champion. He wins the Claymore. But, glorious Bobby Roode gets several chances to take the title off of him, nearly making him submit with the figure 4, hitting him with the glorious DDT. This is a great showing for Robert Roode and a great showing for Drew McIntyre. Thumbs up on this main event. I enjoyed it. You just remind you Drew McIntyre is a fighting champion. Give him a singles one-on-one, a great way to return for Robert Roode. Everyone says, oh, they buried him. You don't get buried if you're in the main event. You get to challenge for the title. That isn't true. They're launching him back into the picture and maybe pairing him back up with Dolph Ziggler, which I think they had some underrated matches when they were a tag team. What do you think here, John? Robert Roode back in the scene on Monday Night Raw.
I loved it. I wouldn't have been disappointed if he pulled a Jinder Mahal type upset and would have won the championship.
I'm gonna stop you right there.
Oh, come on. Look at this. Robert running into people again.
Don't you ever compare Robert Roode to Jinder Mahal. Continue.
I'm trying to remember what I was gonna say after you interrupted me. However,
we're getting some heat. You're getting some West Coast heat.
I remember now.
East Coast.
I think the most important thing about this is where they go with him next after tonight. Like, what does Roode do next? Does he tag with Ziggler? Do they go after the Street Profits? Are they? I mean, we have a draft coming up in a couple weeks, so who knows where people are going to be then? It's just, to me, it was a good return for him, but I think it's more important to see where they go with him next.
DeFelis?
Yeah. Listen, it broke my heart a little bit because I wanted Bobby Roode back in NXT because I do think he is a prime example of a main roster star who I'm not going to use the term buried, but definitely lost a lot of significance when moving to the main roster. But now that he's back, I hope to see bigger and better things. I know that Ryan
Storm.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Ryan Satin spoke to James Storm. James Storm said, I'm coming to WWE. I was supposed to come in at Mania, and something happened, or COVID happened.
Yeah.
Give me beer money. Give me beer money. Let's anchor tag team wrestling around beer money, and I'm good.
That's a big reveal by James Storm to just kind of put that out there that he was WWE bound, and let alone WWE bound to come in around WrestleMania season.
Maybe it's like a cry, like a I want to come there. But basically, I think that's what he was getting at, like trying to basically publicly say, this is where I want to go. So let's make it happen.
And it's a good move because honestly, it's a 2-horse race. I know
Yeah,
we
yeah.
love to talk about the indies and the NWA. It's a 2-horse race, guys. And I have no interest in seeing James Storm in AEW without Bobby Roode to anchor the tag team. And I'd rather just see Beer Money. Wherever they go, I want to see Beer Money.
True, but it seems like they're going somewhere with Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode as well.
But,
so
let a man dream, Kevin.
That could be a feud where he comes back and they fight over Bobby Roode.
they fight over.
Yes, the cowboy,
tag team partner.
The cowboy and the glam rocker fight over this Wall Street money making guy. That's the story.
Of course, we did get news, and this is kind of confirmed on the pay-per-view. You can see it on the ticker if you're watching us live. We will have the WWE draft, and this is coming in a few weeks. It'll start on October 9th on Friday Night SmackDown and continue on October 12th. Obviously, some years ago, I think the draft was a much more anticipated time in the WWE calendar. If they were going to do it every year, some years they didn't do it. And this year, I would say last year I thought would be the most interesting draft, and it wasn't, because we were going to see both shows on two separate networks. So you really feel like maybe there was some level of competition there, though there really isn't to some degree. But there is a sense of, if you get into a certain routine pattern, I talk to many fans, specifically younger fans. I see, you talk about your kids, they're watching Friday Night SmackDown on Fridays. That's their show they watch, and they don't want to stay up too late on Monday nights on a school night to watch Raw. And I've talked to my nephew every time I hit him up and I say, hey, you watch wrestling, and I'll bring up what happened on Raw. He's like, no, I'll watch it on YouTube, but I watch SmackDown. And he likes his guys on SmackDown. And you have different patterns here, and I think that's kind of what people care about. But I think for hardcore people like us and hardcore people in the internet world, that type of line of fandom, I don't know if the draft is as big as it once could be. It's fun. It's kind of like a fantasy thing. If you ran a show, who would you want on your brand? It'll be interesting. I'll follow it. Maybe it could be way entertaining, but WWE has this pattern of building up to things. We get some excitement for them, but not too much. Clash of Champions was that. I'm holding back my expectations for the draft this year.
I think I understand why you're saying that, but the draft is always important because if nothing else, it breaks up the monotony of some storylines that just
and creates
never
new ones.
ending. Yeah. So we're gonna get some shakeups. We're gonna get some new women moving over to the SmackDown side because we need that. We need anybody that's not named Andrade and Angel Garza to challenge the Street Profits. And I just think it's not where I would go because I would merge them. I'd just have one big brand, especially in the COVID era. But the brand split is always good.
Yeah.
What do you think there up in PA, buddy? What do you think?
Just by watching the two shows now, and personally, at least my opinion, seeing how much better SmackDown is than Raw, that's a sign for me right there that you need to make some kind of a change. Raw desperately needs people right now, more than SmackDown. And the way that they've been advertising this draft makes me wonder if it's going to be the same as it always has, or if it's going to be something new. Because the way they've been implying recently is kind of like almost like a refreshed whole new draft where like everybody's a free agent is how they've been making it seem like, instead of the usual like, okay, we're going to take 3 of your guys and you're going to take 3 of our guys, or we're going to have a match and whoever wins the match gets a draft pick. Like, I feel like that's not the way they're going with it this year. They're going to do it a little differently than they have in the past. Is what I'm getting out of it. So I think we can expect to see more than just 6 to 7 changes. I think we could see almost 50% of these rosters get shaken up. Now, obviously, it wouldn't make sense to bring everybody from Raw to SmackDown, everybody from SmackDown to Raw, but I do think we're going to see a lot of changes.
And the question's going to come up like it did last year. I mean, NXT was involved in some indirect way, but you wonder why NXT isn't involved in this.
Adam
draft.
Cole.
Yeah. No, please,
and
no, God, no.
I think we're gonna see some NXT guys get called up to Raw.
You will. I think the thing that they've determined is to just let some NXT selections naturally move and not be a part of a draft per se, even if they're totally going to be a part of the draft. My guess would be Rhea Ripley goes to SmackDown.
I think Adam Cole is definitely moving from NXT.
God help us all.
Moving. He's
God
definitely
help
moving.
us
He
all.
needs it.
Yeah, you don't want it to happen, Robert?
I fear Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era
He
because
doesn't want him to screw it up.
listen. That's another thing. I don't want the four of them separated without story. So
Okay.
I fear the four of them getting lost in the shuffle, and it does concern me. It concerns me greatly because I saw Adam in the Royal Rumble a couple of years ago, and I love the guy, but he did look small. And I just
we already have fans text and said, please leave him in NXT. Don't do that. Don't do that. No,
He has nothing to do in NXT right now, though.
you know what he has to do to stay, and then
and wrestle who and do what? Wait for Pat McAfee to come back
until Shawn Michaels and Triple H can finally, have majority
Control.
vote on the main roster. I'm gonna leave Adam Cole in the safety of his co-parenting Degeneration X fathers.
Co-parenting. It'll be something, but I'm holding back my expectations simply because I thought if they were up front and they said this will be a 3-way draft, I would be more intrigued by it because I think there would be a lot more of, oh, well, who's going to go to NXT?
NXT selects AJ Styles.
Dude, like, exactly. Like, if that happened, now we're talking something. And now we're talking moves and we're talking different things. But there's a lot of me that thinks, oh, they're probably going to hold off that 3-way interaction.
If they did something like that people were going to be like, well, they just want the ratings. That's why AJ Styles is going to NXT.
Yeah,
that's what people would say.
They want the ratings on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown too, guys. Let's not get this wrong. Monday Night Raw is going up against Monday Night Football again. And there has been issues there with the ratings being low, right? Even though they're performing fairly well in their demo compared to football and other things, right? But then people say, well, you with AEW coming at you and they're beating you, obviously think about that. If you make some moves right now with NXT and you bring over some of those names and you say they're not just going to be here for a little while. No, we're bringing over this guy. We're bringing over this act. If you tell me a huge name is coming to NXT from Raw or SmackDown, and you're going to find out this Wednesday, that's a hardcore show for a strictly hardcore audience. And it would pull some viewers to find out who will show up.
They did do that during Survivor Series last year, didn't they?
Yeah, but my thing is, I think they're kind of holding out for Survivor Series.
But I'm gonna just be real. The Charlotte Flair experiment failed. Charlotte Flair did not bring more eyes to NXT. She did not change the landscape of that show.
Sasha and Bayley did.
The guys did during Survivor Series.
The guys did but that's during Survivor Series. When people saw that Charlotte was NXT champion, it didn't boost the numbers. So I don't know if they're that eager to go there again, unless there's a guy like a Finn Balor who's just lost in the shuffle and can be utilized better.
And I think he's being utilized now to be the flag bearer of the brand and be the champion and stuff like that. William 2H agrees with me on this. They should interact more with NXT. I agree. Thank you. Back to Monday Night Raw. We had some big angles here and developing new situations, which they need after a pay-per-view. Obviously, we had the injury last night with Angel Garza. Hope he's okay. We don't know how severe that injury was. It caused a very odd situation with the referee saying, essentially what we've learned is he got injured. X gets thrown up. They get him out of the match. It's a tag team title match. All right. So the wrestlers are kind of told by the ref, bring it home. That means go to your finish. All right. Big anointment spine buster. And then we're going to have Montez do his splash. Oh no, we just get the spine buster. We just get the pin. And that weird, the referee just counts the pin real fast. Let's get this over with situation has now been parlayed into the referees are doing weird things on WWE. We saw that tonight with Aleister Black and Kevin Owens. Very competitive, hard-fought match. I was really, really enjoying this. The weird eye now from Aleister Black. His new music, I don't really care, but he needs a new music. It's a new character. It's a new facet of the character. And we get this new competitive match. The referee gets bumped by an elbow by him for getting too close behind him, and he calls the match, and that's it. And bam, hits him with a stunner afterwards. We get more of Kevin Owens and Aleister Black. It's not a super hot angle, but what are they doing with the referees, John?
The referees want to get into a union. That's what they're doing.
They've done that before. They did that 20 years ago, in fact.
They did it 20 years ago. Let's do it again.
I really don't think they have any idea where they're going with this, so they're just kind of like doing stuff.
I'm going to be the one to connect the dots that aren't there and say I would love it if the referees were the small, teenage-looking Retribution members.
Oh, if the referees like took off their like zipped down their coats and revealed they had their zebra shirts on and then took off their masks.
Yep.
A referee in Retribution would actually be a pretty cool way to like introduce a new member. And that was Drake. It was Drake Younger, wasn't it? It was the referee.
And Drake Younger could easily do it because
I mean, he has a long.
I think it should be
wrestler.
It should be John Cone and Nicholas in Retribution.
Nicholas.
I think Nicholas, at this point, he's probably hit his growth spurt. He might be fitting into the Retribution gear.
What talk about being the coolest kid at school the day after WrestleMania. You just come in and you're the Raw tag team.
I know, like.
Okay, let's be real. He did not go to school the next day.
No, he should have. He should have with the belt. With the belt. Whole other story there. Other developments we're seeing here on Monday Night Raw. You mentioned it. A new women's tag team is formed. Mandy Rose. We knew that she was coming to Monday Night Raw, and Mandy Rose took on Natalya and Lana, who cut up, I thought, a pretty entertaining promo. I like the combo black and pink gear from them. Though these two have been goofed on quite a bit recently. They've been jobbed out quite a bit to the Raw Women's Tag Team Champions, who you're not going to see on Monday Night Raw. So apparently they're the featured tag team act, and then Dana Brooke and the new Mandy Rose takes them on in this match. Adam Pearce is now the essential faux authority figure.
WWE official is what it says. Official,
which is fine. This is fine. We don't need GMs anymore.
We need to call him the commissioner. I like that term.
He should get a raise, and he's just the commissioner.
He should.
Yeah,
he should get a raise. And good for Adam Pearce, by the way. Like,
what do you think of this match? What do you think of the segment? What do you think of Mandy Rose being combined with Dana Brooke, basically as two bomb blonde shells here?
Mandy Rose needs to be careful with that knee.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first takeaway. I don't like it. I don't like it.
They
Mandy
look
Rose,
too much alike.
And not even that. It's like Mandy was in a top story. And yes, things happen, plans change. But this just feels like filler. You know? I want some meat. I don't want the filler, man.
What do you say, Clark?
Yeah, I agree. I just think that it's them trying to form more women's tag teams and maybe see which ones stick with the fans. Natalya and Lana, to me, hasn't really been that successful. Mm-hmm. I don't foresee Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose being that successful either. So I think right now is the perfect time to try these little random pairings, because with the draft coming up, they can easily split up if they have to. You know,
but then it puts you into this weird holding pattern that you kind of are until we get to the draft. And I don't think if you're a week-to-week viewer, you want every week to be the most exciting show it can be, which isn't logical.
They only have one more Raw before the draft.
True, and then we have a couple weeks until Hell in a Cell. So then you have these weird draft moves. Are we going to still finish storylines going into the Hell in a Cell just because you have to do it, right? You have the storyline, so that'll be weird, and then it'll kind of like, does that defeat the purpose of the draft then? So people will make that complaint. That'll happen.
I hate to say it, but I really do think that they need Charlotte Flair back.
Yeah.
I don't hate to say, I will shout it from the rooftops. We need some Charlotte Flair in this mix. She needs to just come in and steamroll over everybody. She is so head and shoulders above so many.
Losing her and Becky in the same year is just
in the same like 2 months.
Yep.
It's wild how much we've lost this year. It is wild how different September of last year looked compared to now,
especially in the women's division.
Yeah.
By the way, I think this is like the year anniversary of Lana first starting to make out with Lashley, and they are on different sides of the spectrum right now.
Yes, they are. Speaking of the women on Monday Night Raw, we saw a rematch from last night's Clash of Champions with Asuka taking on Selena Vega. Asuka, successful once again. A competitive match for Selena Vega. She went nuts and tried to stomp out Asuka. Went for the top rope moonsault, but caught the knees and get put into the Asuka lock. Asuka refusing to release the hold and eventually lets go. Asuka still your Raw Women's Champion. I think it's the right move. Selena Vega here in the mix, though, with the title picture. I think at some point she could be a champion here. She had a wrestling pedigree and a wrestling background, obviously, before she got to WWE, and that's why she's here. But, I mean, you haven't seen much of her. This is maybe, I don't know, she's had less than a dozen matches in WWE, really.
She got roasted by Andrade after too.
Oof, that's not a good sign that they're just done with that pairing and they're gonna split them up. Listen,
not a good sign for who? Him or her?
For either one of them. This ain't gonna work out for either one of them. It never does. They think that they want to go a certain way and it's gonna backfire and they're just gonna get cold feet and put them back together in a year when they realize,
especially with Angel being out. Now he really is on his own.
Perfect time to bring in Charlotte. Did I mention we need Charlotte?
Overall thoughts here on Monday Night Raw. People texting in Christopher Lloyd McNaughton. That's a very sounds like an author's name, doesn't it? Oh, have you read the latest Christopher Lloyd McNaughton book? I thought the show was really, really good. WWE's been stepping up their game, better matches, better storylines, and so he's enjoying the show. There were some things on the show that I did enjoy overall. It was kind of inconsistent. Some of it was good, some of it was bad, but that's just my take here. Anyone else? Did anyone see Tracy Rossman? Did anyone else see Randy Orton at the end of Monday Night Raw? Yeah, he did take his mask off. We got to see him there. So the other people saying in terms of the women here, Jeff Keller saying, time to bring in Tessa Blanchard. Time to bring in Tessa.
I'm gonna be the one to say that, like, guys, I know what you're thinking, but I think we need to just stay away right now. I think we just need to stay away. Listen, I think we just need to stay away. That is all I will say.
Plenty of people think that that's the direction WWE is going, but we don't know for sure. It is odd. I mean, if WWE is looking to get big, established guys who have some name value outside of their roster, like a James Storm, I would assume that Tessa Blanchard is kind of also in that game, right?
Again, yes. And from a purely wrestling perspective, she should be. But I think WWE has got enough PR nightmares on their hands. And I'm sorry, Tessa, if you ever watch this. Love you in the ring, but right now you are a PR nightmare, and I think
Robert, why are you cutting promos directly to Tessa Blanchard on the show? Why are you doing that?
I'm not cutting a promo directly to Tessa. I am simply saying I think she's a great wrestler. Stay away because she's a PR nightmare.
Oh, okay. Now, how does she stop becoming a PR nightmare?
She's
she never will.
Right now in the landscape that we're in, I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know the answer to that question. On the topic of women in WWE, enjoyed another new vignette featuring the EST of WWE, the fastest Bianca Belair, showing off her legitimate track skills, All-American in track. And she got to jump the hurdles. She got to blast through people. This is pretty entertaining. Her on the track just run against some other goons from the gym. I thought this was cool. And I think this is actually making Bianca look really, really exciting if this is the way they want to reintroduce her. Now everyone's just bitching. How come she isn't the champion already? How come you didn't make her the champion already? But think about this. They featured her and she got to show off her skills, her legitimate skills. I think she wins the championship at some point. I mean, if they rev her up again and she mows through people and you set her up against Asuka, that's a great big time. Now someone is ready for Asuka. And it's the EST. I'm down for that. I think that's the direction they're going in.
I think anybody with two eyes can see that Bianca Belair is a star. And they're doing the vignettes. And this is kind of what I was talking about when I said that they are in a weird identity crisis phase. And I just think, Bianca Belair will eventually be a Raw Women's Champion. And she won't beat Asuka, though. Nobody's beaten Asuka.
Until Charlotte comes back.
Oh, true. That would be something. A Charlotte Bianca Belair match. Now I want to see that. That's something. You just pop that into my mind there, John. Covered all the big points of Monday Night Raw. Is there anything else that you guys saw on the show that piqued your interest? What do you think?
There's
John?
one thing I need to say, and I don't know if you're the one that told me this or not, but Keith Lee's music was back to the new stuff. And were you the one that told me they brought his old music back for like one night?
Had no. You know what? You're actually right. I didn't even bring up the Keith Lee Andrade match. I just had my notes of things that caught my interest on Raw. I enjoyed Keith Lee and Andrade. I'm sorry I didn't think that. I had phone calls all night based on some wrestling business I'm trying to put together, and I will hopefully be able to tell you guys about that tomorrow. I won't be able to tell you about it tonight. I will say this. I will be interviewing AAW star Hakeem Zayn. You've seen him on Impact Wrestling. He will be on us with a special extra bonus show tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. We will have a live stream with him that you guys can join, building up to AAW Live, which is live on Fight TV this Thursday night. You can get that pay-per-view at fight.tv, aawrestling.com for more information about that. One of the top independents in the country, one of the top free agents in wrestling, Akeem Zane. So I just got confirmation about that off screen while I was talking to you guys. So if you heard my phone blipping in the background, that's what I was dealing with. So we have that coming together.
Worth saying, current Impact Wrestling X Division champion.
Yes. So it's a very, very exciting time to get this confirmation here. Back to Monday Night Raw. Keith Lee, Andrade. Andrade cuts his promo where he basically takes down his former manager, but gets laid out by Keith Lee. They changed his music back. I don't know. And I know everyone has this huge
Why?
issue.
Everybody was so happy when they finally gave it back, and then it lasted a week. Like, what was
Who
the
knows?
point of that? What was the point?
I don't
Was
get
it
it.
an accident?
Who knows? Who knows, dude? Who knows at this point, Robert? What do you think of this whole theme song, Mishigosh?
I don't think they gave it back to him. I think you guys probably caught the early intro, because the intros remain the same, but they have.
Well, I don't know. Somebody, I missed that part of Raw last week, and somebody told me that they brought the old music back. So
no, the intro remains the same. The bass.
Well, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, but they're not going back because they lost the deal with the CFOs. It's just a different group now that's making the music.
He's the one that was rapping in it, though. Like, it's his own. It just doesn't make any sense.
I think it's because they don't own the music. He performed on a track the CFOs wrote, so that's part of it. I get it. I understand. I don't think it's the biggest deal. I think people get too wound up about theme music. It's cool, but I don't. It's more like a video game thing. It's like, well, that's what I do when I play that guy in the video game. He has this theme music, and this is the music I listen to when I work out.
Customize the music in video games anymore. Don't even get me started on that.
Don't even get me started on that. Don't even get me started on that. We'll get into Monday Night Raw, but we'll cover some other big stories here, specifically that developing COVID situation. We kind of already covered on it. We'll talk about some other things that are going on in WWE, but let's talk about Monday Night Raw. We covered all the big points. What did you guys think here? What did you think of the show? Give me the rating. Number 1, Bash and Booger is your father. Number 10, you find out Robert Roode is your stepdad, and he's not trying to change who your dad really is. Remember that when he came back and he had the mustache? It was one of my favorite wrestling memes of all time. I enjoyed tonight's Monday Night Raw. There were some things that were good. There were some things that were bad, but I thought the good outweighed the bad. I give tonight's Monday Night Raw a 7 out of 10. A 7 out of 10. What do you give it, Robert, not Rude DeFelice?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 6.5. I think they had some good bits, but nothing really worth going out of your way to see.
John?
I gave it a 7 out of 10 as well.
Okay, so it's all pretty good ratings. I mean, and a 7 is a pretty fair rating for us on this show. That's kind of the scale we're on. I've heard some other people, like Keith Pazel on last night. He gave a very middle of the 10 rating for Clash of Champions, and his scale is completely different because he's very casual. He'll watch some Raws and some SmackDowns, but he'll try to watch all the network specials too. And I'll say this in terms of an overall view at the quality of WWE right now. I really enjoyed Clash. I thought Clash was an exceptionally strong show. And I'll say this. I thought it was better than the last AEW pay-per-view. If we're going to start making those comparisons. I thought this show was topped Payback, and I thought Payback was a strong show. I thought this show followed up on some things they started at SummerSlam. And I wish television could be like that every week. I understand why it's not, though, because you have to tell these elongated, just give them a little bit of the good thing storyline match-wise. And the story last night with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso, can we touch on that? Can we touch on that? I am still jacked up from that. This is the Roman Reigns I think everybody wanted to see. What did you think of the new Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the man who makes his family call him the chief?
John, you want to go first here?
I was a fan of it. I really, really enjoy the way that Roman is acting now. I really enjoyed the Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, like, unity at the end. Like, if you want to be the tribal chief, you want to be the head of the table, you got it. But just, like, basically stop bullying us around is essentially kind of the vibe I got out of that. And the only part of it that I didn't like was the whole throwing in the white
Mhm.
towel. We saw that before. I don't remember if that was AEW or WWE that did that. You might be able to tell me, but
AEW is MJF.
yeah, yeah, I remember we saw that before, and I just thought that, you know, it could have ended some differently. I don't know how, but I really enjoy how the SmackDown matches last night. I thought they killed it.
I don't know what produced more moisture, the tears of Jey Uso or the filthy, filthy tweets that scrolled up and down my timeline because your tribal chief was looking real jacked. This dude has been wearing a vest for 6 years and he shed that thing, and the timeline was very much into their tribal chief. That footnote aside, this is the best story WWE has told in years. I could watch this over and over and over again. It was good. Jimmy Uso comes hobbling down. I'm going to throw in the towel. You got nothing to prove to this fool. And Jey Uso, who's just fighting for his life at this point, says, "Don't do it. Don't do it." And he
Don't do it, Oos. Come on, Oos.
He just gets beaten to a pulp to the point where
you don't need to prove nothing to this fool, right? It's like, you don't have to prove nothing.
You have to say "oos" at the end of every sentence, though, or it don't work.
And Jimmy throws in the towel. He climbs on top of his brother and he says, "You're the chief. Is that what you want? Just leave him alone. You're the chief." And he makes Paul Heyman go over and get the lei that Jey Uso wore to the ring and put it around him because he is the chief. This was flawless. Flawless storytelling.
It's definitely some of the best stuff they've done since the beginning of the pandemic. I think we can consider the pandemic like this different era because it's so challenging. And you think of how WWE has subverted their way around the pandemic to do different things and tell storylines without that organic reaction that drives so many great moments. And AEW has done this with their different adaptions. This is one of those things that I think works. Notice how Robert just spent 2 minutes, and you did, John, and so did I, talking about things that people said in a match, not any moves. We didn't talk about a single wrestling move that we saw in this match. We talked about a scene. We talked about characters. We talked about 3 guys who are cousins, practically brothers, going off on each other to see who is the tribal chief of this lineage of wrestling that is so tied to so many generations of wrestlers. You can only do this with certain players in a certain way under certain circumstances. And they did that last night. But one part about it, I think that really came out is how much that dialogue hit, because you have a faux audience and you have a faux response and a faux soundtrack of an audience blended in. I don't know how much of that dialogue would have played out if this was in front of 15,000 people.
Okay, can you imagine the reaction Roman's going to get when there's fans back? I think it's going to be massive heat.
I wonder if he would be a cool heel. I wonder if he'd be treated like the NWO. I wonder if all those women that were like fawning over themselves when he came out there would turn out for him. They've done it for John Cena before. He would certainly be getting a reaction. Crowds would not be quiet when Roman Reigns would be walking out, hypothetically, if there was crowds.
I think Roman still gets the women reaction, if not more so. The kids might not like it. The kids might not be okay with it. But I think every grown man that was booing Roman Reigns wanted him to stop with the push and
they all love him now.
Oh God,
they all love him now.
Roman Reigns.
The hypocrisy of the internet wrestling community when Roman, John, you are shaking. I think your head is shaking yes on this one though. But
because I was one of them. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but I mean, they hated him. They're like, he's all this and he has no edge and he's just shoved down our throat. I don't care if they say he's a dog, blah, blah, blah.
Big
now
dog.
everyone is just sipping from the tap, is just drinking out of his hand. And I also think this proves a lot of things that Roman has been saying, that I am one of the best guys in the business. I'm one of the best guys in the business. And he says it, and people would lose their minds when he said this. There are very few people that could do what he did last night. He did it.
Yeah,
very few.
Paul Heyman helps too. Don't
forget
about that.
Of course. And like, I think nice little thing I liked in the match last night, I didn't bring this up in the review, is there was a near count out in the match. And Paul's at ringside and is following the referee, and Roman's not paying attention. He just yells to him, "You're at 3. You're at 3." And he's like, little things like that add so much to it. The way Charles Robinson was told down by Roman, like, you're not involved in this, dude.
How about Roman yelling at Charles Robinson, "I'll get you fired tomorrow"?
I'll get you, I own this place. And like when he picked up Jay and he beat him down so much and he held his face to the camera and said, "Get that camera over here." Literally called the camera shot of what he's doing in the ring. These are things I think that only stand out so much because there is no fans. You could hear it so much. You could feel those things so much more. And I absolutely loved it. I love where it's going. I want to see what they do. It's more intriguing. I hope Hell in a Cell is good. I'm feeling good about WWE coming out of this pay-per-view. I thought Raw was pretty good in following it up. I thought Robert Roode's coming back. I'm not. I have wavered expectations, but
so do you
it's
think
good.
do you think they're gonna go again, Roman and Jay? You think they're gonna fight again?
No. I don't know if I mean, they beat Jay down so bad. I don't know if you can. But here's the thing: this made Jay a star. You know, like, I mean, how many guys get the towel thrown in on them in a match and their first title defense, and people consider them valiant warriors? You know, I mean, he didn't give up. He didn't get pinned. He refused to tap.
He looked good.
And he looked great. And all they had to do with that match in terms of Jay, what Jay had to look like was Jay had to look like a real contender. That promo he cut on SmackDown was fantastic. The number one question I get in my life is, which one of the Usos are you? You know, who am I in this? And I'm not just Roman's cousin, and I'm not just Jimmy's brother. I'm not just one of these guys. I'm proud to be of these guys, but I'm not just another face in the crowd. I'm going to prove it. And I thought that was great. And he had near falls where you believed several times in that match. You believed, God damn, Jey Uso is going to beat him for this title. And that's all they had to do, is just get you to believe it for just a few seconds, 2.5 really. And they didn't get to 3. Right. I liked it. It's one of the best WWE title matches in quite some time.
Yeah. And again, this was totally about the story. It was about the characters. It was about just the bits of wrestling that have maybe gotten lost in the modern work rate era. And I loved it. Flawless match.
Hell in a Cell. We already touched on it. We touched on other big things here. You know, before I get into Hell in a Cell, I know I'm ADD, I'm all over the place, but we touched on this last night, and I want your take on it as well, guys. Roman looks strong. Roman says he's the top of the heap of the Anoa'i family. He is the king of the Samoan dynasty of wrestling, but we all know there's really one name in that family that is the most popular, and he's also the most popular movie star in the whole world. He made an endorsement for the presidential campaign and had a huge video. One half of that campaign for the Democratic campaign. He endorsed Biden there on Sunday, the day of a pay-per-view. Interesting correlation there with social media patterns to want to do that, Rock. But The Rock and news. Someone made some connections today. We have this tweeted out that he wore a shirt in January that he posted on social media, and that correlates to the exact dialogue that we saw Roman use pretty actively of saying another level, new devils, and you got to be at another level. He kept saying that I'm at this level, I live at this level, and you're not going to level up, that type of thing, right? And people made that correlation to what Roman is doing now as this new heel character and saying he's the top of the heap in their family. Do we get The Rock versus Roman Reigns at some point? Something makes me think it's not likely, since there's such an insurance incentive to not have somebody like The Rock be in a wrestling ring. Rock has got injured wrestling in the past 10 years doing it when he does come back. But I mean, the dots connect themselves, don't they, guys? The dots really connect here.
This is a different Rock. This is not the Rock from 2013 who, had to answer to Michael Bay, who had to answer to whomever. Rock.
That is a great point.
Very much in his own production company. Rock has his own tequila. Rock at this point is making money for himself. I think if Rock wants to wrestle Roman, Rock's going to wrestle Roman. I have to admit, after the tribal chief diatribe and specifically the call me chief bit in the match, I don't know who else could beat Roman Reigns. And even John Cena, I think, needs to fall on his sword for the tribal chief. But then again, do we want to see The Rock, who at this point is almost 8 years? He's 8 years out from his comeback with Cena. Is it right to put The Rock over Roman Reigns? I don't know. Does Roman beat Rock even? Maybe.
I just think it's a bigger question. You think the match will happen. I think the bigger question is whether or not the match can actually happen. But if there was ever a storyline for him to come back and do this is it, right, John? This it writes itself to some degree. Just to get to there would be exciting right now.
I think that at this next WrestleMania, we're getting one of two things. The first one is going to be The Rock versus Roman Reigns. The second one would be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. We're getting one of those two. I just don't know which one. I think if we get Roman Reigns versus The Rock, Roman Reigns does win clean. He wins clean over The Rock. And I think if we get Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns, I think Brock Lesnar does win. That's just my 2 cents, but I think you have to go one of those two directions with Roman because who else do you put in the ring with Roman at WrestleMania at this point right now that is a formidable, strong, on my level opponent? It's those two.
And then of course James Espanto Fernando Taguay texting into the show as he always does, says The Rock is preparing for his 2028 presidential bid. So he's got to train for that. He's going to see if that happens.
He's preparing for his 2021 XFL launch.
Yeah. I don't think he can be the president of the United States and run a football league, but who knows?
Yeah, well, everything is changing, Kevin. You can be the president of the United States, do whatever you want.
From this room? Yeah, that's the ticket. Yes, make America Kevin again. That's going to be my slogan. So I think the whole situation is crazy. If they get Rock, yes, Stephen Chambers texting in. Thank you so much, Steve. Always supports the show. He says Roman versus Brock.
Yes.
Winner gets small.
I don't know about the winner get Heyman, but I do think Lesnar could be a good face, but he needs a manager. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. Some other fans just want to see some different challengers. Michael says, build up Big E, have him beat Roman.
Phil Brooks.
Who I can see in a scenario where we can't have The Rock, I can see Big E leveling up to defeat the tribal chief because he's a big meaty man and he can slap meat with the big dog.
Why not Otis? Why not Otis?
And that's another thing is Otis still has that Money in the Bank briefcase hanging over this whole thing. A ridiculous storyline with him and Miz. It's ridiculous. I wouldn't say it's not entertaining.
Well,
but I don't know how.
I read the rumors of why they're doing this. I mean,
I have not. What are the latest rumors on that, John?
The latest rumors were that the reason they're doing this is because they simply want to get the contract off of Otis and just have it go away.
Oh, just not have Otis be in play for it.
Yes.
Because I do think that the hype with Otis has cooled over the summer. Not to say that he isn't as entertaining, but he's just settled into this pocket of.
He needs fans.
Yeah, and he had a lot of momentum coming out of when the pandemic started. He had all that momentum going into WrestleMania. He had I think a fulfilling match with Dolph Ziggler. It was just a fun moment. He got the girl right, all that fun stuff. They've done some fun segments with him and Mandy, but now they broke that pairing up. They're not on the same show. You're not going to see them on TV together. And I think him and Tucker as a tag team going after the tag belts, winning those tag belts would be exciting. Him winning it at Money in the Bank, I think I wouldn't say it was short-sighted, but it felt like a short-term thing. And so many things changed.
They didn't cash in when they could have.
No, they didn't cash in when they should have. And I think having Otis cash in now and lose on television is just about the best thing you can do with it. I don't even think that could be a pay-per-view match. I think that could be a really entertaining television match that could lend itself to Roman crushing lovable characters that you like. And he's a guy that you used to like, and now he's going to beat up people you used to like. And bring me all of your favorite cushy little toys, and I'm going to smash them. And I'm your dad. I'm sending you to your room. I'm the chief. If they go in that direction, I'm okay with it. But I don't know. I don't see him cashing.
I think they could trade him to Raw, and then he could cash in on somebody on Raw. Like say it is Randy Orton. That's more reasonable to me than cashing in on Roman at this point, because if he's going to cash in on Roman, likely somebody's going to have gotten the upper hand on Roman where he's vulnerable in the ring to be cashed in on in the first place.
We got brutal Hell in a Cell matches coming up on the 25th, and one of those, maybe both those titles are going to be defended on that show. And if he has that Money in the Bank briefcase, if ever there was a time to cash it in, it would be after a Hell in a Cell match. If he still has the briefcase and he doesn't get sued for it, which makes no sense at all. How can you get sued for something you won in a match?
He's being sued for being negligent towards the briefcase, Kevin.
Oh, because he gave the old switcheroo because the one they stole was negligent to it.
No, because he's not paying attention to it. He's being negligent towards the briefcase.
You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You ready for some questions here, guys? We'll take a couple questions before we're done here on the show. This is a question from Sean Smith up in your neck of the woods, the old Northeast where you used to be from, Robert. He's sporting his New York Yankees logo. Will someone hit Roman with the shell headband the way Piper hit Snuka? Will someone attack him? Who will step up against Roman now after this? Because I don't think it's Jay.
I think Roman goes into Hell in a Cell with The Fiend. Mm-hmm. I think we get a little bit of Alexa, get a little bit of Paul Heyman, get a little bit, I think that match happens. But I think it's over very quickly, and I think Roman still walks out as the Universal Champion. And that's unfortunate for Bray Wyatt, who always gets the crap end of the stick. But Roman is where the money is right now.
I do think the thing with Bray Wyatt is he's the Fiend. He doesn't. Yeah, he won this title and lost it in a week, and he lost to Goldberg. But the fact of the matter, when everyone lost and he lost the title to Goldberg, you still love the Fiend. He's the most over with casual fans. There's a reason he's on SmackDown because Fox wants him there, and they see how over he is with casual fans. He's the modern day Undertaker. In terms of characters of mysticism and that supernatural element, he's been the best character to bring some of that stuff into WWE in recent years, and I understand why they still continue to feel like he's kind of Teflon in that degree. Just the way Randy Orton lost 3 pay-per-views in a row since he beat Edge, right? But he's still Randy Orton. He's like, when you have guys like that get to that rarefied air and they're so established, it just doesn't matter whether they win or lose to some degree. Whether they just have a compelling performance is more entertaining. It's okay, But I agree with you. He has gotten the tough end of the stick, the Fiend, because he's been such a vital part of Raw in terms of telling storylines. But also another thing with Bray is he has matches, but do you ever remember many of his matches? More of his promos?
No, you don't. I think he's had one good one, and that was Daniel Bryan with the Indian strap match. I thought that was really good.
Johnny U texting in saying Retribution wasn't on Raw. They wanted to join the Dark Order, drank the Kool-Aid, that bit from Being the Elite, and now they're in quarantine. So we have the whole quarantine thing on. John, we touched on this earlier on in the show if people are just joining us late here. Obviously, COVID is a bigger issue. There is fear of a second wave in the United States. Florida, the state where AEW and WWE are running right now, and what Robert appropriately referred to as a 2-horse race. And what do you think here? What's the next thing that either one of these brands can do with the situation we're in that is COVID 2020, blah, blah, blah? What can they do that would be a curveball for you? Because we don't know what WWE is going to do past October. Could they be out of the Thunderdome?
Yeah, I think the biggest curveball really is they actually start touring again with fans in the stands, because I think at this point nobody really expects that. Maybe the little outdoor show like we discussed before in like the soccer stadiums where they can have fans, but I'm talking like having a Raw in Chicago with fans, a Raw in Pittsburgh with fans. Like, I don't see that happening, and that would be a major curveball.
It shouldn't happen.
It should happen.
So some difference in this. All right, that's okay.
It should happen right now. So wait a minute. So in November, you're telling me WWE should start touring the country with people?
I would be the first in the door.
I didn't doubt that aspect of it. I was just asking if you think it should happen. I don't know.
Yes,
I don't think it's time yet.
With limited capacity fans, and they set up the little glass barriers like they had in the PC, and they just stay safe and they stay away from the fans. I don't see any harm in that. It's worth at least one shot. If you have one outbreak, then okay, we at least tried. They can't say we didn't try. AEW tried. It's working for them. Even if you have to do it in Florida. Hell, if I have to fly down to Florida to go to a show with fans, at Survivor Series, I'll come down and I'll go to the show. But just let fans come back, please.
I
Okay.
think
So, John, your take is do it, but do it with the most mitigation. Do it with the least amount of capacity that feels right.
Yes, like these NFL, they have fans back now. They
In
have,
some cities they do, in some cities they don't. Robert,
but we're
you're
slowly
down.
getting more.
Okay, so Robert, you're down in Florida. You have a completely different take on this, and I like that I've just kind of stumbled in this little great debate that we're in here. Robert, you're on the side of don't do it at all, right?
Well, I'll meet you in the middle. I know that I can't have it my way where we actually just like get things under control before we start running. Since AEW is running with people, I say go back to the Performance Center and run in the Performance Center with people. They did it for the final NXT. It's ironic the way timing worked out. The last NXT with people was from the Performance Center. We know we can do it. We know we can have the hockey boards up. Do it from the Performance Center with people. And maybe if the card's good, I'd be one of the first to say, yeah, I'll take the 2-hour drive to Orlando and go. I just don't think that the idea of touring is a strong idea now. Have people back? Sure. Look, Florida is completely open wide, and that seems like the next logical progressive step. But I don't think we can have, people just touring again. I don't know if superstars would want to do that.
I don't think if tour. I don't. My one caveat would be no touring. Don't take people, moving them to different germiverses across the country. I'm going. Like I've mentioned this in the past couple of weeks. I'm just talking about my own experience. I'm going to Milwaukee to do a comedy festival. I will be there for several days. I'm going to, at maximum, 5 places while I'm there. I'm only going to 5 places while I'm there. I'm only going to places I see that have a 40-foot high ceiling. If I was WWE, in terms of the protocols and different things that I've seen that are effective in wrestling, there's 2 different ways they should do this. Stay in the Amway Center. Stay in the Amway Center where you know your gear is, where you know everything is, where you know you don't have to wash everything down from bringing it in. Do a mixture of the Thunderdome with live fans. Do a mixture of the Thunderdome with live fans in place. The Thunderdome has been really successful. It's really engaged a lot of WWE's fans in a completely different way. It's for what we can say is we're not talking about the Thunderdome because it's working. All right. When people talked about the Thunderdome, they worked like the biggest thing I saw about Thunderdome tonight was someone put up an AEW poster. Week 1 or week 2, people really would have cared about that. Tonight, it's a blip on the radar. All right. It's a blip on the radar, and they're policing it better. John, you've been in it. I think the sound of the crowd that they're dubbing in now is much, much better. They've amped it up. Like you get the clapping and the stomping. I know it's dubbed in. I don't care. It works. It just fills in that gap that is audibly there. And last night on the pay-per-view, they pulled it back and we got to hear more of the dialogue. So play with the adaptions and let them do what they want for you. But I think bringing in fans, they should bring in fans with the Thunderdome. Keep that distance between the fans and the Thunderdome. Put them up in the 200 section. Get them as far away from the ring as you possibly can. Wear masks the whole time. Take those notes from AEW. Only pods. Keep everyone super separate. And the biggest ones you should take from the completely different version. If you want to stay in an arena, though, look at what New Japan did. They're doing 3,500 people in 10,000 seat arenas. It's doable. So take all that, combine it with the Thunderdome, have that take up the entire 100 level. The other option, I think, is what we saw with Warrior Wrestling this past month. I've mentioned them the past 2 weeks in the show. Congratulations to them in Marion Catholic High School. 4 successful events. I spoke with friends of mine that worked on the show tonight. They said they felt safe every time they were there. They looked safe. They had 200 fans at the shows spread out on a football field, all spread out in individual groups, 20 to 15 feet for every individual group, face mask the entire time, policing the audience, and wild in the ring action. I'm going to tell you, if WWE said we're going to be in open air in a warm environment, if you want to, what if WWE did a show on the beach? We talked about what they could do. We talked about the boardwalk, but now obviously that kind of rules out some things. We've heard WWE has thought about the idea of doing some things outside of the Thunderdome near the end of the year. Aesthetic changes for WWE always pique interest with their hardcore fans. I think something happens. I think they get out of the Thunderdome in some way. I don't know if it happens before the end of the year.
They're going to pick up a lot more attention than when AEW did it, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Like ESPN and them, they're going to cover this, how WWE is now touring with, or not touring, but having fans at events again. You know what I mean? Like, just to all these media outlets, it's bigger when it's WWE doing it, even though it's the same thing. They're going to get more coverage, so they can't mess this up.
Robert, get in there.
I'll agree with that 100%. AEW has a margin for error that WWE doesn't have because AEW has support from the audience. People are going to be looking to sue WWE. And I said, and I'll say it anytime confronted with it, they're going to be looking to sue them at the first sign of anything. And I guarantee you, nobody, when Lance Archer said, I have COVID, or when Ben Carter said, I have COVID, was like, oh, I should get tested. If I test positive.
Oh, well, another thing is if you go to these events and you're a fan and Disney
should be your own risk.
Yeah, you go to these events, you are giving away liability. You know what I mean?
But I am telling you that people would be more willing to accept that from AEW than they would be WWE.
You're in terms of like a PR thing, in terms of like how swarms of people are going to run to the internet and yell at WWE for something instead of they wouldn't do it with AEW. You know what? I'll say this: AEW seemingly got off with the COVID cases this week. You know, they didn't get the flack that WWE got that first wave that happened in the spring. When everyone said shut them down, AEW never got that. They never once got that. And I do think there's a completely different culture to it now, where the sense is they're going to happen. Try and reduce the risk as much as you can.
I'll tell you right now, that's bullshit.
Okay.
If WWE had a massive outbreak like they did, like, you heard, hey, Nikki Cross is off the show, Shayna Nia off the show, outbreak at the PC. You saw a lot more people angry about that in the WWE camp than you did. Hey, look, there was a breakout as it relates to the September 9th AEW tapings. You didn't see people saying, hey, shut it down. It's a different mindset. And not everybody's like that. It's a double standard.
It is a double standard. It is a double standard. I don't think any of us would agree on that. And I do think there's a cultural issue with the way that AEW has carved out their fans, in the sense of, if you're with us, you can really only be with us. You can watch other show and talk about it and all that stuff.
But we're number one.
We're number one, and you got to say we're number one, and you're not with the cool kids unless you say.
And to be clear, that is not the company. That is the fandom.
Yes.
That is 100% the fandom doing that. And I agree completely. It's this weird, like, hey,
cult.
I don't want to use that word, but but like the way that some of them act. Yeah. I would use that word.
The thing tonight with the Thunderdome, that's someone who spent hours and hours to be have their face on a screen on international television so that they could hold up a sign. Now, mind you, you do that when you go to a wrestling show anyway, right?
Right.
But it's just a massive waste of energy. You know what I mean? And it leads me back to, at the end of the day, guys, you are a wrestling fan first. And these big giant companies, these multi-million-dollar companies, are fighting for you,
your money,
and your time, and you watching their television show. And they're fighting for you to watch their YouTube videos and subscribe to their networks and buy their pay-per-views and buy their merchandise. You are not fighting for them. And if you do that, you've fallen for this kind of trap that we're into with social media, where we have to say we're against something so that we prove we're for something, when at the end of the day, all you're seemingly for is disruption and confusion and provocation and pissing people off. And that's it. You're getting cheap heat. You're into cheap heat. And cheap heat is cheap because it goes away really fast. And that's all this stuff. We keep doing it. It's a dog biting its tail, man. I think it's stupid. It's one of those things when I have friends who come into wrestling or have come into it and left it early. I have friends who started watching AEW and tuned out of it. I was talking to them this weekend, and they're like, "Well, why'd you tune out of it?" I was like, "I don't know. Feels a little too bro-y to me." And they just and that was it. And they were just casual fans. And I never even thought of that. And I do think these are the things that, like, when people look at what you do, I'll be like, I'm more embarrassed of this than someone telling me it's fake. You know what I mean? Like, I'm more embarrassed of stuff like this. But that's it. John, what can they find your stuff on WrestleZone coming up?
Yeah, so I'm going to be on shift every Sunday, as usual, from 10 to 4 Eastern Time. And then you can also catch me on Twitter at John R. Clark 12. A lot of good stuff this past Sunday. I had first covered the news there with all the other wrestling sites about how The Rock had endorsed Vice President Biden to become the next president.
It's going to shift it. Done. If Rock says you should be president, you're president. I mean, it's kind of done. I mean, let's just say
there are people that genuinely believe that.
That was the most commented post on WrestleZone.com's Facebook page in almost 2 months.
You're absolutely right. I was literally, I had that in my notes. I was just about to tell you that. I was surprised you brought up the Rock story. I was hoping you would bring it up.
400 shares. I mean, people were just
losing their minds.
Both very positive and very negative replies, as you can imagine.
How could you do this? You betrayed me. You betrayed. I heard someone say.
Or on the opposite, like, oh, he's the smartest I knew. I'm gonna go watch Fast and the Furious tonight now.
I did see, and I can't quote it verbatim, but there's a theory that clearly The Rock was murdered by a shadow militia, and like. Yo, it's. I will say this: November cannot come fast enough, and I hope to God that it all just quietly goes back to normal. It's
not going to.
I know it's not.
There is no way we get to that weekend or that Wednesday after that Tuesday or whatever election day is, and this is way out of wrestling. I know, guys, where everything's quiet.
Like people are saying that Biden and his VP paid off The Rock to.
They paid him off. They were like Vince McMahon. They paid him off.
Harris paid him.
He's supposed to be the people's champion, and he went with him.
It's crazy. I don't want to dive too much into it, but it's so crazy.
Hey, marks are still real, dude. Marks are still real out there. People
are respecting that everybody has their own opinion until that opinion doesn't reflect what their opinion is.
And John, that's a perfect way of putting it. It's an absolutely
and that goes just across the board. That is the perfect statement. I did cover this on Fightful, and I made the joke on social media. I'm so excited to be a political writer now, and I cannot wait to cover WrestleMania for CNN.
Well, political writers they're just pro wrestling writers writing about real life angles.
But very well said. A completely different show that we should all do together one day. But in the past month, I've covered Andrew Yang several times. I covered The Rock endorsing Joe Biden.
You know what? I'm going to say that we do. I mean, we're not supposed to make endorsements, but Herman Takar, big fan of the show, he texted and says, "Vote for Pedro for president. He will make your dreams come true." That is great Napoleon Dynamite reference. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Herman.
I like that. That was a very one of the best movies of the 2000s. Absolutely, Napoleon Dynamite. So good on The Rock. That was definitely a big story for us, and thank you for bringing that up. Robert, you are busy on so many other wrestling websites that you have love affairs with that aren't WrestleZone.
I do. Me and Bill Pritchard had
and look at this. James Esponta Fernandez texted in.
Jesus Christ!
And he sent in your plugs. He watches the show so much.
He sent in my plugs, including Time Killer Apparel, which is currently down, but it will come back up one day. Hopefully soon. Yes, Robert.
Read what Robert wrote for you.
I will read it exactly
after the ampersand, please.
I will read it. I'll read it exactly as James wrote it. Robert, Fightful Select, Smart Out Moment, Time Killer Apparel, and the all-nighty Sean Ross sat with is lovely and WrestleZone. So I'll break this down a little more. I am on Fightful Friday through Sunday. I'm on WrestleZone every other day of the week. Smart Out Moment, I do podcasts with on Wednesdays and Saturdays with the Paul Heyman Smack Talk podcast. Time Killer Apparel is not currently a thing at the moment, but it's coming back one day, and it will hopefully be stronger than ever. God, it's very weird for me that somebody had my own line of plugs ready, but thank you. Thank you, James. I see this one while we're getting into the ridiculous.
What?
Taco Bell Chihuahua versus the Coke Bear. Listen, we apologize. We know that you were supposed to get a lot more fast food fun from us. COVID just threw everything out of whack, and we apologize.
We can't open up the fast food Royal Rumble because we too many regulations. You have too many people in the ring.
I understand, like the mask doesn't fit the Chihuahua and the Bears. We're having a hard time getting regulation masks. When
John has no idea what we're talking about.
Oh, I know.
John's been working here long enough. John knows.
Yeah, if you're watching the show, you know what we're talking about. We did these goofy bits where we would animate video games and have them be fast food mascots, which broke out of a ridiculous joke on the show. And about fast food mascots and how I liked that KFC and WWE did this commercial where people dressed up like the Colonel and then he wrestled in matches. I thought it was amusing. People thought it was silly. I said we should do an entire pay-per-view like that, and that evolved.
We did
the Coca-Cola Bear,
and
all coked up, baby. All coked up.
You say that jokingly, John, but the Coca-Cola Bear has become a sentimental favorite among the faithful, and we appreciate you.
I mean, they are high on the Coke Bear. Let me just tell you, dude. They are high on him. There you go.
If you're not all coked up, then what are you really doing with your life?
Definitely. Always the real thing. Always the real thing. All right. People want a fast food takeover. We do have takeover this Sunday. Obviously, John Clark will be covering that. And Robert will be doing something else for a website I no longer name. So we'll definitely be covering that. We will have a post show.
Can't name the competition.
Cannot. We will not put over the competition.
Hold on. We can't propose that wrestling fans get over their pettiness and then go on and be petty. Like, come on now.
It's different. We're in the business of wrestling.
Nothing personal, just business.
Nothing personal. Okay. This is professional. Okay,
I understand.
I'm not full of it. I don't ride alone.
You need to watch Robert do the Fightful show and see if he plugs WrestleZone over there.
Have we talked about Robert doing another show?
Thank you for actually reminding me because I forgot
don't you go and plug another show that is literally on air the same time I'm on air.
Yeah, you're right. It's on the air when you guys are on the air. That seems mean, but
he's doing a Fightful post show on Wednesdays when John and I are on, and we're giving you the grace to be in the beloved zone, the Thunder Zone.
Y'all need to get 2 monitors like me because I can watch you. And
I got 2 monitors. I got 2.
Then you can do both. You can support me and still do your job. I appreciate it in advance. Thank you.
So are you saying you have us on your other monitor?
I absolutely am. I always support Kevin. I support you too, but like Kevin knows, like if he's on the radio, I'm listening to Kevin.
We're at the 77-minute mark.
It's just there for the one.
This is the longest plug segment ever.
Hey. It's just because we're letting the people know that we do other things, but we get along. We love each other. We support each other.
Kirsch is saying, fire Robert.
No, you're not. No,
I can't. Have that power.
I can't. Here's the thing. I can't. Like, even if I wanted to, I can't. The deal has been settled. It's been brokered. All right. I'm locked into this agreement for a whole other season here. All right. So I got to get the most out of it that I can. This is like when Deion Sanders was playing baseball and football at the same time. I want him to show up for the playoff game, but I only get him for the regular season. So I'll take what I can get. All right. I'll take what I can get. All right. So Sunday night, we will have a post show. Hopefully you can join me, John. We'll figure that out. We'll be live on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much to everyone who's checking out our YouTube. We're doing live watch alongs, some of the big pay-per-views, and hopefully we can do that for TakeOver as well. If you watch us on Facebook, we do all the same content over on YouTube as well, and even more bonus stuff. Tomorrow afternoon, we will have a bonus show with Hakeem Zayn of AAW, the big event AAW Alive this Thursday on Fight.tv, and of course you can catch him as well on Impact Wrestling Tuesday nights on Access TV. That's coming up. If you haven't done it already, subscribe to the podcast. And we will have a bunch of extra content up there as well. Thank you all the new viewers, listeners, people checking out the show in Turkey, people checking out the show in Saudi Arabia, and the people keeping us in the top 100 of the Apple Sports Podcasts on the Island Nation. We are the Mediterranean mayhem force of wrestling media. We run an entire body of water in the wrestling world. There is not a more popular wrestling podcast in the body of water that is the Mediterranean. That is what I'm taking. That body of water in the center of Africa, and the center of Europe, and the center of Asia. We rule that entire body of water. All right, that is ours. If someone's listening to wrestling media on that huge body of water, they are listening to the show. You may as well call it the real WrestleZone. You may as well call that WrestleZone. Cyprus is now WrestleZone Island. I'm just saying what we're all thinking.
We look forward to doing live shows in Cyprus.
It will happen one day.
It will
has
happen.
to happen.
We are coming to Cyprus, baby. 2021. Get your shot in the arm or fly out to Cyprus.
As soon as we land, they're going to know who we are. As soon as we land,
and we know. Come on, obviously,
we're rolling out the carpet for us.
When you think if WrestleMania is not going to be in LA, Cyprus. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Of course, it's Cyprus. So we're going to be there, and we're getting ridiculous. This has been one of the silliest endings of the show. Soon to be on Mars. Thank you, William T. Wages. Yeah, soon to be on Mars. We'll be there to cover NWA Mars very, very soon. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon with that special edition with Hakeem Zane. Follow John Clark on Twitter, John R. Clark 12. Follow Robert on Twitter, @Dude Felice, and follow me @KevKellum if you have not already. Thank you so much. Remember, stay safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, keep your distance. And when watching wrestling, John, I trust you to say it. What do you do?
Enjoy wrestling.
See, Robert,